Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today's webinar, and we're going to be talking about SAP Lumira for SAP BI 4.1. And today's presenter will be Jose Hernandez, Director of Business Intelligence. I'm Lori Blanford, the Senior Marketing Manager here at Done Solutions Group. And we're really excited for today's presentation. It's a fantastic product, and it's matured quite a bit in its latest release, and we're really happy to share all of its capabilities with you. All right, I'll begin today's presentation with a brief introduction to Done Solutions Group, and then I'll turn it over to Jose for the remainder of the presentation. Just a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions today, please feel free to submit them via the GoToWebinar question box, which is in your toolbar. I believe that Jose is going to run the full hour, so we probably will follow up with answers to the questions via email. However, GoToWebinar does collect the questions. It does let us know who submitted them, and we do promise to follow up with you individually. Also, today's session will be recorded, and we will share a link to that recording with everyone who registered in the next few days, and that way you can share the presentation with anyone who was unable to join us today. And all of our previous webinars are available for viewing on our website at donesolutions.com. Okay, so I'll get started with an introduction to Done Solutions Group. Start at the beginning there. Okay, Done Solutions has a long history of delivering innovative business technology solution companies. We're headquartered just outside of Chicago and have offices in Minneapolis, Raleigh, St. Louis, and Bangalore, India. Our offerings fall into three practice areas. First is application development. These solutions feature portals, e-commerce, and content-managed websites, mobile application development, and custom application development. Our business intelligence solutions feature analytics and BI platforms, as well as data warehouse and data integration, and a predictive analytics practice. We are authorized SAP and LifeRay training providers, and we offer several out-of-the-box analytics frameworks. BI frameworks include solutions for accountable care organizations, corporate legal departments, higher ed institutions, and optical shops. We've been helping companies leverage their data for over 25 years. Our business intelligence practice helps deliver information to decision makers throughout your organization so that it runs better. We can help with decision making by not only looking in the rearview mirror, but also looking forward by leveraging predictive analytics and data mining techniques. Our predictive analytics practice helps companies make the most of their existing data to uncover future trends, risks, and opportunities that result in bigger returns or help avoid big losses. We maintain strong partnerships with top technology companies in order to offer our clients the most innovative solutions available. We are an SAP Gold partner and have been a top-level partner for nearly 20 years. We are an SAP authorized training partner, and we help companies nationwide maximize their technology investments. We offer public, private, virtual, and custom courses. Our public classrooms are located in Minneapolis, St. Louis, and Raleigh. Please contact us for any SAP training needs your company may have. We offer a global delivery model that gives us the flexibility to build teams that are best suited to our clients' timelines, budgets, and preferences. Projects that utilize offshore resources are always led by someone local and US-based. And our clients, some of which are included here, are a combination of Fortune 500 mid-market companies, government agencies, and nonprofits across all verticals. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jose. And as I mentioned, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And let's make Jose the presenter here. Okay, Jose, you should see a notification making you the presenter.
And hopefully you can hear me and see my title screen.
Indeed, we can see your screen and I can hear you. Thank you.
All right, just a quick check just to make sure that it's a live screen. I'm going to move something onto it and off of it, and you tell me if you see something moving on and moving off.
Yep, indeed.
All right, then we're good to go. Thanks, Lori. I'll take it from here. All righty. Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending. I'm very excited about this presentation today. And actually, a little bit apprehensive as well. The first time I did a Lumira presentation, it was called Visual Intelligence, and I could barely fill an hour with the capabilities of Visual Intelligence when it first came out. I have a new problem today, and the new problem that I have today is there's too much stuff, and there's too much stuff. The product has matured to a point where there's some very interesting capabilities that are built into the tool, and it's been evolving and growing ever since its first version. Right now we're on version of Lumira 1.25, and that's the desktop application that we will be looking at today. We will also be taking a peek at some of the server-based products as well. Another thing that's very interesting and we'll talk about today is things have evolved and changed so quickly that there are new things that exist even prior to this webinar being completed. So I'm going to talk about some of those new things and tell you how it plays into the whole framework and into the roadmap. And it's also going to be a nice segue for me into whatever that next webinar is going to be, and I'll give a hint as to what that will be as well. So without further ado, let's get into this. And I'm going to switch my slide here. So historically, you've known Lumira as two things. There was a server version of Lumira, which could be on-premise, live on-premise in the enterprise as a HANA application. That's the Lumira for Enterprise. And there was also the desktop version of Lumira, which sits on your desktop. There's a couple of versions of it. There's the free version, which allows you to gain access to local data sources. And then there's the enterprise version, which lets you get to local data sources as well as connect to enterprise data sources. What's been missing in the mix here is, hey, what about that mid-market size company? So what about that thing in the middle? So for the moment, please pay no attention to the square in the middle of the screen. And I know my reference in here might date me, but some of you might recognize it from The Wizard of Oz. All right, so one of the things that's new in terms of in the Lumira world is Lumira for Teams, or it's also known as Lumira Edge. This is a version of Lumira Server that was released that basically allows the smaller organizations, and I say the mid-sized companies or departmental level folks, to deploy a server version of Lumira as well. And so we're going to talk about these in a bit. So if the Lumira for Teams is for that departmental level, then what's the big deal about it? Well, it's a smaller deployment of the Lumira server. It uses commodity hardware and does not require HANA. So that's one of the big things. So if you wanted at a departmental level deploy an on-premise Lumira server, you can certainly do that now without acquiring HANA or HANA hardware, which might be beneficial to some organizations. So we know that Lumira Server for Enterprise is enterprise powered. It runs on HANA. It can deal with huge data sets. It's the massive version of Lumira. That's the way I like to refer to it. But there's another interesting development that recently happened. In fact, I believe it was generally released about a week or so ago, and that's Lumira Server for BI. And Lumira Server for BI basically gives us the ability to run our Lumira stories and visualizations on the SAP BI platform. And it does not require HANA in order to run. And basically, Lumira content will appear on the BI platform just like a Webby report or a Crystal report. You can schedule it. You can manage security based on the object itself. A lot of really cool things. Well, I guess what I should let you know is that that's going to be the target of my next webinar. But today we're going to focus on Lumira Server, Lumira Desktop, and Lumira Team Server. So it's a nice little teaser there for what the next webinar would be. So Lumira Server is our robust enterprise trusted data discovery and data delivery tool, which works very well with the Lumira Desktop application. So from the Lumira Desktop application, you can initiate visualizations and do some cool, create some cool storyboards and have some revealing content that you can share with other folks. At that point, you can go ahead and publish that storyboard or that content onto the Lumira server. And from the Lumira server, folks can work with the visualizations and compose stories or simply consume them from there as well. So there's a lot of neat things that you can do with the Lumira server along with the Lumira Desktop. So as I mentioned before, the Lumira server does run on SAP Hana. It's a Hana application from scratch. And the nice thing about this is that it takes advantage of all that in-memory and horsepower that Hana brings to the table. Very important when you're dealing with very, very large data sets and you want some very, very fast visualizations. So Lumira Edge Server or Team Server, I think both names are being used right now, but I think Lumira Edge Server is going to be the name that sticks, is a new version of the Lumira server which runs on commodity hardware. It does use an in-memory engine. It's not HANA, but it's called the Velocity engine. It also runs in memory, so while it's running on commodity hardware, it's taking advantage of memory within the commodity hardware to go ahead and do the processing. This gives it very, very good performance, and it doesn't require the cost of that HANA hardware component. So that's a big benefit for departmental level purchases and for medium-sized enterprises that they could take advantage of this capability. So Lumira Edge Server, if you remember the picture that I had for the Lumira server, the one that runs on HANA, it's very similar, actually. One thing that they've done nicely is they've maintained a consistent look and feel across the various platforms that you can deploy this on. And you can see here, it's even close to the desktop application version. In the server world, though, you have 2 tabs instead of 4. We'll talk about that in a bit. But you have the Visualize tab and the Compose tabs, which gives users the ability to add or change or modify visualizations or even change the stories that were composed and placed out there. Depends on the rights that they have. We're going to look at the Lumira Edge Server from an administration point of view, and we're going to look at it from a consumer point of view as well, so you can see the differences in the interface. And as I hinted and mentioned before, the Lumira Server for BI, that's the new one that just recently came out. It basically is going to give us the ability to run this Lumira content on our SAP BI platform, and that's going to be the topic of my next webinar. I will coordinate with Lori on when that will be and make sure that everyone gets notification of when that will be. But that should be fun because now we have the true marriage between the BI platform and Lumira without requiring HANA in order to do it. And if you still want to do it via HANA, well, you certainly can do that. If you have a HANA deployment, you can certainly do that. But now for the rest of us that don't, this is a good way to go. All right, so if you're new to Lumira and this is the first time you've been to a presentation about Lumira, I guess I should start with telling the story of what is Lumira, what's it all about. And so Lumira is a data exploration and visualization tool that initially sat on the desktop and allowed users to acquire data from a variety of data sources, prep, massage, clean up the data, explore the data a bit, and learn about the secrets that were in that data. And then from that, go ahead and create visualizations. And you'll see a picture's worth 1,000 words. But these visualizations were then used to compose and tell stories. And you basically, if you think about a comic strip, that's kind of what you're doing. Or if you think about a pamphlet, that's kind of what you're setting up. And the difference is that these are interactive comic strips and interactive pamphlets. Once you've composed these stories, you want to go ahead and share the things that you've done, so you can share them in a variety of ways. As we talked about already, you can share in the SAP Lumira Server, which sits on HANA. You can share on Team Server, which is the Edge version of Lumira Server. And you can also share on the SAP Lumira Cloud. And so that's the premise of what Lumira is all about. Acquiring data, preparing data, visualizing, composing a story, and then sharing that insight with other folks. And if you remember those steps, you've got half the battle licked. All right, so instead of me trying to show you pictures and talking about what this product is and what these new server versions are, I thought the best thing to do would be to do a little flyby and kind of show you the software itself. So I wanted to start, and I'm going to bring this into the screen here once I find my mouse. There we go. So I want to start with here with the Lumira Desktop application, because that's kind of where it all began anyways. Let me bring this into the fold here. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so the Lumira Desktop application has come a long way. Currently, right now, it's in version 1.25, and the releases are coming fast and furious. I believe within every 6 to 8 weeks, there's a potential for a new version to be out. Within the application itself, you can go ahead and check for updates, and if there are updates out there, if that next version is available, you can download it, and then it installs over your existing version. So it's very easy to keep up to date in regards to that. So the Lumira itself starts out with a neat little tiled interface that basically says, hey, yeah, I want to go ahead and create a new document. Well, I've already got a document created, so instead of creating one from scratch for the moment, I'm simply going to click over here in this navigation pane where it shows me, here's all the stuff that I have, and it kind of gives me a count of all of that stuff. So as an example, I've got one document that I've created. I can click on visualizations, and it'll show me all of the various visualizations that I have within the various documents that I have. All of my data sets. There's only one data set in here right now. And whatever stories that I've composed. And you can see that there's a few stories here that were composed. And that's kind of neat because you can, at a glance, kind of know what you got going on. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this existing document that I've created. A Lumira document is nothing more than a collection of data sets, visualizations, and stories, and they're kind of bundled together. So as my Lumira comes to life here, let me walk you quickly through the various tabs and to see what you kind of do there. By default, I've got mine set up to start out on the Visualize tab, but through the preferences, and we'll take a look at that in a bit, you can decide to start out on any tab that you like. But here I am starting out in Visualization. So these are the tabs that we mentioned earlier, the Prepare tab, where I can prepare my data. I'll click on that. So you can see as soon as this pops up, what I've got going on here is a collection of data that I've acquired from some place. And once the data is here, I can look at it in a grid form, and or I can look at it in a facet form. And the facet form is nothing more than, hey, show me all the distinct values within each one of those columns and give me a sense of how many occurrences I have of each one. If anyone's used Explore, you'll recognize the facet form of looking at the data. Either way is fine. You can decide to look at it one way or the other. Okay, so now, how did I get data in here in the first place? It might be one of the questions that you might ask yourself. And so to get data in here in the first place, what I do is I create data sets. And I can come in here and I can say, hey, here's my existing data set. You can see that it came from an Excel spreadsheet, or I can add a new data set. So by adding a new data set, here we go. There are a variety of places that I can go off and get data from. I can grab it from an Excel spreadsheet, which is the example that's sitting in the background here. I can go ahead and get data from a text file, so CSV, text, log files, all kinds of different formats that I can support. If I copy data right onto my clipboard, I can go ahead and get data from my clipboard. These are what are called the personal data sources, and with the free version of Lumira Desktop, these are the things that you can access. When you have the enterprise version of Lumira, you have access to these other things down here. So one thing that I can do is I can go ahead and download data from SAP Hana. And so I can attach the various HANA views that I've created that I may have available to me and bring in data that way. I can also use the universe connection type. So when I come in here, I can log into the BI platform and use a universe to grab content. Or one thing that's very powerful, I can use straight SQL. And I'm just going to click on this for the moment so you can kind of get a sense for what's supported here. And anything that I have a JDBC or OData connector to, I can go after. So all of these things that are in here, you can see that there's a bunch that I have here out of the box. I can go ahead and connect to these types of databases and type in my SQL and acquire data in that fashion. I'm not going to do that, actually. What I did want to show you is a couple of things. If you have the Enterprise Edition and you did want to create a new data set, there we go. One thing that's been around for a little bit is this universe connection. So I can click on this and I can hit next. And what that does is it asks me for my credential to a particular system that I'm connected to. If I remember correctly, there we go. And I put in my username and password. And when I do that, it shows me all of the various universes that are out there that this particular user, myself, has available to me. Give it a second here. Oh, connection failed. Either I have fat fingers today or I forgot my password. All right. That's not good. I'm going to try one more thing here. Let me cancel this. I apologize. I'm going to potentially move on here, but I just want to do one quick little check just to make sure that I know my password and that's not the issue. Apparently, I know my password. So I'm going to do one more try. And instead of showing you this, the one that's been around for a while, what I'm going to do is show you this new feature. And we'll talk about how I got to this in a bit here. But it's basically using the query panel. So that same query panel that I'm used to when I use Web Intelligence or any of the other tools. There we go. That's better. Is a new capability here. So let me quickly go to eFashion. Everyone is familiar with eFashion. But now I can go ahead and query my existing universes in a query panel that looks just like the query panel that I'm totally accustomed to. And it opened up on my other monitor. There we are. And so there it is. So now I've got my query panel, and I can come in here and I can grab various components here. And if I wanted to create a filter here, like for example, if year is equal to, and I'll select the year from the list of values. And let's go with 2006. Cool. And I can even refresh and preview my data and go ahead and finish. And it's going to go ahead and acquire my data and get it ready for me to do some profiling. So I now have two data sets in my document. And my two data sets, and here we go, here's the fun little eFashion data set that I just dragged in. So my my data sets now are this new data set that I just created, and I can give it a nice name. And the original spreadsheet that I had. Now, once I have multiple data sets into here, it's really neat because I can go ahead and combine these data sets. I can either merge them together with columns that are like primary keys and foreign keys, or I can append them. If there were two data sets that were of similar structure and I want to append one to the other, I could do that as well. Obviously, eFashion has nothing to do with my existing data sets, so I'm not going to be merging them. But I can work with multiple data sets even within the document that I'm creating, and that's how I would do that. But now how did I get that query panel in there? That's kind of neat, and that's very new. The way to get that query panel in here is that there's this new feature where people can develop extensions to Lumira Desktop, and you can manage your extension. The extension manager comes out here and says, hey, we're going to get some extensions that are out here available by partners. And you click on this, and it shows you a list of all the extensions that are available. And you can see here that I added the SAP Universe Query Panel extension to Lumira, and that's how I have the ability to use that. And so this new extension feature is going to be taken advantage of by partners and developers to go ahead and build extensions to Lumira and add some cool capabilities to it. So you can go ahead and add them and use them. So that's the first one that I found that was really neat because I get to use the query panel. All right, so with that aside, let me just tell you a few things about the preparation tab, and then we'll move on from here. In the preparation tab, what you'll notice is once I've got this data in here, it shows up as a series of columns, but over on the left-hand side, any object that is numeric by default is called a measure, and you can come in here and say, yeah, sure, it is a measure, or it isn't, and you can change that, and you can come in here and say, yep, it is a measure, I want to change its aggregation. So you can certainly come in here and do that, or maybe choose none as its aggregation. This is basically telling it, when I see revenue and I want to roll it up, how do I want to roll it up? I want to do sums, I want to do counts, mins, or max, the appropriate thing. Anyone who's developed universes is familiar with this concept. It's very similar to developing measures within a universe. Once I've got my measures defined from my data set, I come down here and I can basically define what my various dimensions are. And here they are. And I can come in here and adjust my, my various dimensions. I can basically come over here and decide, hey, is this actually a number? Is it a date? Do I need to convert it? Do I want to rename this object? Do I want to remove it so it's not a part of my data set anymore? A variety of things that I can do here to basically start preparing my data for use. And I can create custom hierarchies. So if I wanted to create a new hierarchy that was based on, okay, so here's a particular, I'm going to click on customer just for fun. And I come over here and I can say, hey, I want to create a custom hierarchy, so I can come in here, create a custom hierarchy, and basically say my hierarchy is going to be called whatever name I want to give it, usually a reasonable one. And so this is a drilling path that I can define. So in my drilling path here, what I may do is I may start out with my, my store city. I'll move that over, my store state and country, and ultimately I want to get down to customers. So I'm going to go ahead and move these around a little bit. Move that one to the top, move this one up a bit, and move this guy down a bit. So I've just defined a custom drilling hierarchy called JH's custom hierarchy, and I can go ahead and create that. And so now when I'm in my visualizations or in my stories and I want to go drilling, I have this custom hierarchy based on by that name that I can go ahead and use. And so in fact, you can see here, there's my custom hierarchy that I just created. So that's really neat. It gives you a way to drill in and drill out of various data. In terms of preparing my data, all kinds of neat things that I can do here. If I click on any particular column, there's a series of wizards that I can call to help me clean up my data. Okay, so I can do it at the column level. And I can come over here and do some further transformations to the various columns. What's really neat about this is as I do these transformations to my data, Lumira is remembering these transformations. So if I refresh my data set, if I say, hey, let's go out and get the latest and greatest data, it'll apply these transformations that I've defined here. So it, as the new data comes in, it then gets applied, and I have all that cleanup work that I did all taken care of. So that's for the moment it about the preparation tab. There's all kinds of neat little tricks and nooks and crannies that are in here, but I want to focus now on the Visualize tab. And in the Visualize tab is where we have all of our fun, and there's some really neat new features that have been provided for us here. So I want to show you a couple of these. Yes, obviously, I can come in here and create new visualizations quite easily. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new visualization. Maybe it'll be a column chart. So I'll go ahead and create a column chart. And in my column chart, I want to see my cost. And I want to see my costs split up by maybe milk type. So let's go ahead and bring in my milk type down here. And let's go ahead and choose revenue as well in here as my second axis for my column because it's a two bar. There we go. And so that's really what it takes to start creating visualizations. And I can go ahead and change the way that I'm creating my visualization. So I can come in here and change that from a column chart to a line chart if I so choose. Or maybe even a pie chart. Okay, and you kind of get a sense of what I can do here. And the really neat thing about this is that I can very quickly change the way that I'm looking at data. Check this out. I'm going to go here to a 3D column chart, which is one of the new chart types that's available here. And you can see that I've got my milk types over here and my various axes that I've got over on this side. So kind of neat, a really neat way of doing this. I'm going to change my my x-axis here real quick. I'm going to add my custom hierarchy. oops, sorry. There we go. And so you can see here that I've got my store country, that's my hierarchy, and what I can do here is I can go ahead and use my hierarchy to go to the state level, finally to the city level, and all the way down to my customer level. At this point, I'm overwhelmed by what I'm seeing here. There's way too many data points. So I can go ahead and rank this, and so I want to see my, based on revenue, I want to see my top 10. Okay, and so there's a new visualization that I've just created. If you notice down here at the bottom, I've got all the various visualizations that I've got in my document, and I can click from visualization to visualization. So the whole point of creating these visualizations is so that you can visually see what your data is telling you, and you can do some fun things like you can zone in and focus in on particular points. So I can highlight these points here, and I can say, hey, those guys, I want to exclude those from my data set, or I want to filter for just those in my data set, so I can certainly do that. And with most visualizations, I can go ahead and have this interactive approach to looking at the data. As I've created these filters, you can see up on top here that my filters are being exposed to me. And I can do that graphically, or I can hit the little plus sign over here and continue to create additional filters. And they've improved the filter interface. Regardless of where you do filtering from within the tool now, it's the same filter dialog box. So I can come in here and say, hey, these are the particular cities that I'm interested in. Those are the ones I want to include. And I can either apply it to the current visualization or to my entire data set. So I can choose how I'm going to apply that. And I can choose to either have these be in list or not in list. So I can say filter to these or all but these. So a very neat way that I can go ahead and work with my data. Once I've created my visualizations, what I'm ready to do is to compose a story. I'm going to show you a story that was composed here, the dairy wholesaler story. This is called an infographic, and it really is an interactive and fun little way of exposing data. Infographics are typically put together to make a point, and so if there's a point that you want to make, you define an infographic. If you want to have more of a dashboard experience, what you would do is you would create a storyboard. And so, for example, a storyboard might look something like this. And in your storyboard, what you're doing is you are grabbing visualizations that you've created and you're dropping them into your various pages of your storyboard. So notice here, I've got some line charts and bar charts, and let's say that I want to replace this guy with this visualization. Really, all I need to do is drag and drop, and I'm changing the layout of my storyboard here. And I can go ahead and even include multiple elements within a particular page. I'm not limited to just my visualizations. I can go ahead and define input controls. You can see here that there's an input control already based on store city, and maybe I want an input control based on milk type as well. I'll drop that over here to the side, and you can see that depending on where I hover, it'll let me drop that in. And so now I have my input controls. What's neat about this is I can say, well, here's my dashboard, and I want to just look at what regular milk had to offer. So I click on that, and I am now looking at the values just for regular milk, or just for organic milk, or for both. And that's the idea. And I can have multiple pages, so I can add new pages to my storyboard, and I can link from one page to another. Ultimately, what the idea is that I can put together interactive visualizations, some of them that look and act like dashboards, some of them that look and act like interactive pamphlets, but it's totally up to me. I want to show you a couple of other things that's neat because I'm not limited to just these visualizations. I can also include pictures. So if I want to bring in pictures, so I want to import, I may have some pictures in here. So, oh, here we go. Let's bring this picture in here. So I'm so happy about my how my milk is doing that I think that I want to share my picture to the world of there I am, you know, steering my yacht as I'm talking about how great my milk production is. And so there's a variety of neat things that you can do with these controls and create some pretty stunning visualizations. Now, once I've prepared my data, I've created these visualizations, and I'm ready to compose a story, or I've composed a story, I'm ready to share the story. And so sharing the story basically says, hey, I want to take parts of my story and put it somewhere where people can get to. And this is where we get to the part about the server components. So I just showed you with the desktop tool how I can go ahead and go grab data, create visualizations, compose a story. Now I'm going to share them. And I will tell you that some of the server components, depending on how you got your data, for example, if you used SQL Server or Oracle or Universe to get your data, these stories that you compose are refreshable. And I didn't show you how to do that. Let me quickly, just so that you can see that it's in here. So one of the things that I can do is in here, and it's on my page settings. Hold on a second. All right, here we go. So for example, in this infographic, I can turn this on. I can say, hey, refresh this page on open. Now, this infographic got its data from a spreadsheet, so that wouldn't necessarily be a good idea. But if this were a SQL Server or a Universe where the data came from, I could turn that on. And every time somebody opens up this infographic, it's going to get the latest and greatest data. You have to consider why you're building the story that you're building. If it's to talk about data at a point in, you probably don't want to turn this on. If it's talking about data as it stands here and now, it's something that you may want to turn on. But then, depending on whether that's turned on or off, what happens is, depending on where you share it, you'll be able to refresh that data to the storyboard as well. So what I want to do is show you a couple things that I can do in terms of sharing my stories. So for example, my slideshow here that I created, I can go ahead and I can export this thing as a file, and this feature appeared a few versions ago. And exporting this as a file, it's kind of neat. I can create PDF files for the visualizations, and I can choose all the pages or just some of the pages. And I may even want to set the dataset filters to show up as an appendix. I'll go ahead and export this, and I'll show you what happens. I'll put it on my desktop, and it just does a story. And I'll go ahead and save that. Okay. There we go. All right, so this particular story, that my sample slideshow had 6 pages, so it's going to go ahead and export these 6 pages. And what will happen is on my desktop, and I'm going to go ahead and open it and slide it over as soon as this is done. So there it goes, it's done. And so here's Jose's story. It's a PDF file. I'll open that up and move it on over. And so what I get is this PDF file, which is basically the storyboard that I had created. And this storyboard was a simple storyboard. Each page was just one of my visualizations is all it is. And then at the end, if there were any filters or so on, it would tell you like, hey, so what were the filters that were set up for each one of the pages? So that's what that little checkbox for the appendix I set up was. So that's kind of neat, because now I can take my stories, dump them into a PDF file, and share that with folks. The other thing that I can do is I can publish this to the Lumira Cloud. So if you have a Lumira Cloud account, you can publish it up to the Lumira Cloud, or publish it to your Lumira server. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we have a Lumira server. And the real secret is, does Jose remember his Lumira server password? See what happens. He does. And so you can see here that in the past I have exported this, and so notice these 2 dependent components that are here. So here's my data set, and it's saying, hey, it's already out there. Do you want to overwrite it? Or maybe you don't want to overwrite it, right? So I can say do not overwrite. Since I know that data set hasn't changed, I'm not going to overwrite it. And then this slideshow sample here, it doesn't exist up in my server yet, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new item. So I'll go ahead and publish this. And it's published, and it's all good. So I just took this storyboard and published it to my Lumira server. It's the one that's sitting on HANA. The other thing that I can do, and let's go back here to my compose, is I can save these things, not to the Lumira server, but I can save them to a variety of places. So here I am. I can save my actual document, the entire Lumira document, to the Lumira cloud. I can certainly do that. And it's everything. It's the data set. It's everything that saves up to Lumira cloud or to my Lumira Team Server. And that's what I'm going to do right now. And of course, Jose's got to remember his password for his Lumira Team Server. Wish me luck. Yay, I remember it. So I'm going to put a 2 here just in case I've done it before so we can see it's a new one. I'm going to publish that to the Lumira Team Server. Let's go ahead and save that. All right, cool. So I've just created a visualization and brought in some data, did some fun things with my data, and I shared it to the to 2 places, to my Lumira server on HANA and to my Lumira Team Server. My Lumira Team Server is running on my desktop, actually, and I'm going to show you that in a bit. So I'm kind of done with Lumira here for the moment, so let me minimize this. And I'll bring up a browser. All right, let's open this up a bit. So I've got 2 tabs here. Here's my Lumira Team Server, and I'm going to log in as administrator. And there we are. So when I log in as administrator, I've got this administration tab over here, or excuse me, this administration section. In the administration section, what I basically can do is administer groups and users. So for example, who are the members, who are the users that I have in here? And you can see that I have 2 users. I have the administrator and my own account. Now this server is running, remember I said it could run on commodity hardware? It's running on my desktop. And it's a Windows 8.1 machine, 64-bit, with 8 gig of RAM, and I was able to deploy this thing right on here. Now you can also define groups, which is kind of neat, and it's a newer feature. And you can create groups here, and people can be put into these various groups so that you can administer at a group level as opposed to having to administer at an individual level. Also have some nice little dashboards here, so my sessions and my licenses kind of shows here that I have an evaluation license. There's 29 days left, and I have 5 named user licenses and 0 concurrent licenses, and I currently have 1 active member and 1 active session going on, and it's the administrator itself. So it's kind of neat. And then under maintenance, it gives me information in regards to what version do I have, how much RAM am I using, how many cores do I have, all that fun stuff. And even the ability to take a peek at my configuration, and kind of gives you a sense of the things I can do here. If I'm not an administrator, if I log in as myself, I basically just have the My Files area. So I can click over here and I can look at all the files, or I can look at the files that were shared by me, or the files that were shared with me. And so I'm the administrator and nobody shared anything with me. I click on all, and I see all the files that are out there, and you can kind of see all of these files. Now, here's the fun part. So here's this thing that I just published out here. So I can go ahead and double click on it. And there's my story that I published being consumed in a server. I'll do really quick here just so that you can see that I also have access to and have saved things to my Lumira server, my HANA Lumira server. Oh, let's see if I remembered my password. I did. And so here, my Lumira server on HANA, very similar concept. I have a list of all the contents that I have over here. And I can look and say, hey, well, I want to look at my stories. And so here's my dairy wholesaler that I published up there. Actually, it's this one right here, my sample slideshow, because I can see by the time. So if I double click on this, you'll see my sample slideshow. And I can go from page to page, and each one of the pages is nothing more than each one of those visualizations that I had mentioned, much like we saw in the PDF document. Okay, so let me pull this aside here. And I did say this was a flyby. I wanted to kind of show you all those parts and pieces. The Lumira Desktop, the Lumira Edge Server. I also showed you Lumira on HANA. And I mentioned Lumira Cloud. Lumira Cloud is just like Lumira on HANA, except that it's hosted by SAP in the cloud, is really the big difference between that. So that was our flyby, and I want to cover a couple of things here. So one of the things that we did that I wanted to include in the PowerPoint so that you have it as reference, did you notice the Universe Query panel? So basically, from the Extension Manager menu option, you can go ahead and look for partner extension and go ahead and apply those. The SAP Universe Query extension panel is free, so you can go ahead and grab that and apply it to your Lumira Desktop, and you can have fun with getting to your universes that way and using the query panel. All right, I wanted to run through a couple of things about the Lumira Edge Server factoids, because that was the original highlight of this presentation. So the Lumira Edge Server does run on Windows, Windows 7, 8.1, 2008, and 2012. There's some caveats and so on. All this information is on the PAM, so if you want to find out what the latest and greatest info is, you can go look at the PAM. That's basically where I got this from. It does support Chrome and Microsoft Internet Explorer as of now. Those are the servers that are supported by the Lumira Edge Server. In terms of being able to refresh from data sources, if your data source is a UNX universe, or if it's a JDBC connection or Oracle or SQL Server, there's the ability to go ahead and refresh from those data sources, which is really neat. Couple of other things. You can, it does integrate with Active Directory, which is cool. And Apache HTTP server is supported for reverse proxy. And for virtualization, you can use the Citrix technology and the Microsoft technology. Now remember, this applies to Lumira Edge Server. If you want to know about the other Lumira version servers, the other servers, you have to go to the PAM specifically for those. Wanted to give you a sense of the hardware requirements for this. So it says recommended 8 gig, 4 cores. That's kind of the setup that I have here on my laptop, and that's what's recommended. But it will run on less resources than that. If you're just demoing it or evaluating it, you certainly can run it on a little bit less horsepower. It does have to be 64-bit though. All right, so this snapshot actually is of a slightly older document, but there is a document out there that I provided links to in one of the slides that tell you all about what are the differences between the Lumira Edge Server and like the HANA server version and so on. So there's a whole series of things that are out there. The list is reducing because as they've deployed, as they've released newer versions, that list is getting smaller and smaller. And I basically have some links here for you. So first of all, you can go ahead and get your Lumira Desktop free and a trial version. So the free is for the personal data sources. The trial does allow you to do the enterprises. And you can get your Lumira Edge Server, a trial version of that as well. You saw that it was a 30-day trial based on my deployment that I have here. And there's the link for the restrictions document and for the user manuals. Obviously, when you get there, get to the user manual for the latest and greatest version. Let me talk about licensing a bit. So Lumira Edge Server is a separate licensed product. and Lumira Desktop is a separate product. So depending, if you have a BI platform and you have named users, you're going to have licensing for Lumira Desktop, and then you just have to worry about the Lumira Edge Server. Now, if you have a specific situation and you want to talk about what licensing do I need, what licensing do I have, if you reach out to us, we can work with SAP to determine what you got and what you might need to take advantage of some of these things. You may have some of this licensing already in place, but we have to make sure that that's the case. Now, in terms of, I'll get some emails in one of the slides here in a bit so that you can see who you can reach out to. So I wanted to show you another thing. There's a wonderful tutorial site that's available on SCN, and that's the link to it. And the reason I like it is it's a quick video, or interactive video actually, on the new features as they are released for the Lumira Desktop. And so you can see here that if you just want a quick run through of some of the capabilities as they're released, you can go ahead and pick the version. And what I like to do is start at the bottom and work my way up, and then I'll kind of know everything that it does by the time I get to the top. And finally, I wanted to provide emails of some folks here. This is the account managers for Done Solutions Group, and these are the folks that can help you out with licensing and so on, depending on what your region you're from. But I believe that, and Lori, if you're still on the call, is there a general email or place that they can reach out to us, or should they try to identify a particular account rep?
No, they can respond to follow-up email from myself that will include a link to the webinar as well as a PDF of the slides.
All right, cool. So you can get back to Lori, or feel free to reach out to these account reps as well. I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to speak to anyone that wants to talk about licensing for this software, and we can help you out. Now, my next webinar is going to be on Lumira Server for BI, and what I'm going to focus on is the new features of this server, which tightly couple the SAP BI platform with Lumira content, and that's primarily what we're going to focus on. We may toss in some of the new features that are part of the platform, excuse me, of Lumira, but primarily it's going to focus on this integration between the platform and Lumira itself. I don't have a date for this yet, but we will be announcing it. And so thank you very much for your time. You have my email address if anyone wants to reach out to me directly and say hello and maybe ask me some questions. Also, you can respond to the correspondence from Lori. And I know that I used up the entire time, so if there are questions out there that were submitted, what we'll do is we will respond to those questions and distribute it accordingly. And thank you very much, everyone, for your time this afternoon. And I hope you're a little bit excited about this product. I know I am. And it's just getting cooler and cooler. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.